Everyone. I am so happy you're here. Welcome. What day is it? I think it's Tuesday. Welcome everyone to Tuesday. And today we're going to talk a little bit about essentials of financial aid, or otherwise known as Financial Aid 101. And since I want to tailor this to your needs, if you're a senior parent or senior family, or you're a counselor of senior students, feel free to check in with Rob and get your questions out there, because I know it's crunch time. We're feeling the crunch. Senior students are waiting for their envelope or their emails to get in, and then of course they're waiting for their financial aid letters. So we can spend a little bit of time talking about that if you need that part of it, which is the verification process and comparing award letters and actually commit, and then finalizing your award letters. But with that said, let's get started. Hold on. So just, rolling back in time and thinking about your student going to college and the purpose of need-based financial aid. When we talk about financial aid, we talk about, three aspects. And one is, we want to educate our future, and we want everyone, or at least I do, I want everyone to be able to have access to college. And another important factor in my company and in the colleges that I work for, I work in several different college financial aid offices, is, we want students to have choices, to feel comfortable in their education, to feel comfortable where they're going to college, to know that that's going to be their home for the next 4 years, and not only comfort, but success. And success is the key to beyond college. So financial aid need-based is not merit money, although there is merit money out there that's awarded to students directly on their grades, how they did in high school, and usually when you get merit award, it's based on your admission application. But today specifically, we're going to talk about need-based aid. So the basic fundamental breakdown in basic terms for financial aid is that the primary source for aid are students and parents. So the Department of Ed says the number one person, the number one source that's funding our students' education are parents and families. The second source is financial aid that may be coming from the government, federal financial aid. And the way they figure out how much comes from the parents and how much comes from the Department of Ed is they have a formula. And that formula measures the ability and the willingness to pay for higher education. And this is really my favorite part of financial aid. And I'm sure, whether there's counselors or parents here on the webinar, and you've heard everything from beginning to end, from A to Z. You've heard that scholarships are only for A students, and I think that Zinch can be the best number one A gold star moment, that there's a scholarship for everyone. And if you log onto your Zinch profile, which I have a lot of my students and families do, and completely fill out your profile from A to Z, you'll know that scholarships are for everyone, and there's a different one. You just have to sort of search it out, and Zinch is a great platform to help do that. Another myth might be that you should go to the school that gives you the most amount of money. And sometimes, if that is a key factor during the college process, and I want families to remember that the college process has a lot of different components, and one of those components should be financial literacy with the student who's applying to college. So if money is a key factor on whether your student can attend that school or not attend that school, then you should keep that criteria on the top of the list. But should you go to the number one? Well, if you're not comfortable in that school and that's not where your student might be the most successful, then I wouldn't go there just for money. So another myth I find, just sort of unique is financial aid is only offered at some schools. Well, if you hear that one on the street or the neighbors tell you that one, that's not true. Absolutely not true. Financial aid is offered all schools across the board. It's a federal program, and you fill out your FAFSA. It's a free financial aid application. You find it online, and so it's offered across. So tell your neighbor that myth is not correct. Only apply to the least expensive schools. So this is a very hot topic right now in education, higher ed, that colleges, private colleges that may cost above $40,000 might end up giving you the most amount of aid. So if your family is a middle income, low income family, I want to encourage families not to shy away from those expensive colleges because they might actually have more money to give, different kinds of pockets to draw from that money, whereas the least expensive college might not have that many funds or have less pockets to draw from. So that's another myth that we like to kind of let parents know, apply and then see where it takes you. I won't qualify because my neighbor didn't. So let's start off right away that every family's financial situation is your private, unique to you, and no one else in the neighborhood or the community. So when you're applying, it's about your finances. It's not about your neighbors and what you think might be happening at your neighbor's house. You never really know what happens behind closed doors. So it's important to do the best for your family and your students and kind of focus on that through the process, because it can get overwhelming in communities, small communities, large communities. You read a lot, you go online a lot. So really stay focused on your process and your students' process. And last, we make too much money, we won't qualify. So that's kind of a catch-22. If you do make a lot of money, you may not qualify for certain things, but certain scholarships or maybe some aid or grants in the university might need the FAFSA filled out in order to be awarded the scholarship. And another thing is you never know what's going to happen. So I encourage families to fill out the FAFSA or fill out the Css Profile if you're going to a private school. That way you'll have a safety net in case something happens and you need to have that documentation on file. So those are the myths I'm sure you're hearing in the neighborhood, on the news, everywhere you go. So if you're a senior student, I hope you filed. And if you haven't filed yet, please, when you're done with this hour, that be the first thing you're going to be doing tonight. File your FAFSA. If you're in California, your FAFSA is due on Friday, so it's right around the corner. If you're across the nation, you might have missed your FAFSA deadline, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't file it. So go file it. Don't be worried about whether your tax return is done or not done. Use your estimated income from 2011. And right there on the FAFSA, it'll say use estimated numbers. If you come from a family that's divorced or that is maybe a blended family, there's certain ways that you need to fill out the applications. If you're divorced, you include the custodial parent, so that's the parent the student lives with, on the FAFSA and on the profile. If the parent that is the custodial parent is remarried, then you have to include them also on the FAFSA and the profile. If there is a non-custodial within the family picture, then that non-custodial parent, the one that the student does not live with 51% of the time, may need to fill out a non-custodial application. There's 3 applications in the financial aid process, or more than 3, but the 3 big daddies of all are the FAFSA, the the CSS profile, and the non-custodial parent profile. So using the parent that the student lives with 51% is considered the custodial parent. Rob, how are we doing?
Doing well. We have one question I wanted to bring up about the FAFSA deadline. You mentioned California's tonight. If people are in other states, what's the best way for them to figure out when the deadline is or if it's expired already?
So you should either go to the college that your student has applied to find out if the FAFSA was due. You could also probably go on your internet browser and you can Google state, federal FAFSA deadlines, and there's an entire list. I probably can send that to you, Rob, after this in an email. I have like a PDF
Perfect. And then we
of
had a
all.
question. Oh, sorry. And then we had a question about college-bound students that are non-US citizens or potential college-bound students. Is there any specific advice that you have for them?
So, not if you're not a U.S. citizen, you can receive other kinds of grants or scholarships if those, if you're eligible for those. But as far as federal money, you cannot receive any federal money if you're not a U.S. citizen. That's the simple version.
And then if for parents or students that are currently juniors, when is the earliest they can fill the FAFSA out? When does that open?
So the FAFSA goes up the January of the student's senior year. Okay. But let me just side note to that the CSS profile. So if the students are going to a private university that uses the CSS profile, that goes up October 1st of the student's senior year.
All right, and then one more. We got a few more, but I'll let you get back to the slides, and we can answer. Keep the questions coming. We'll get them all answered for you. In terms of the custodial parent situation, is there an advantage to who's listed as whom, or are the incomes counted differently?
So the rule is that if the student is living with one parent 51% of the time, that parent becomes a custodial parent. And the student is living less than 50% with the other, that's the non-custodial parent. And that's the rule all the way across the board.
Got it. Okay, and then very quickly, everyone, we are recording this presentation, so we will send this out to you. So you will have all this information. There's no need to frantically write down everything on the slides. And we had a couple of general questions about CSS. What is that exactly?
So the CSS profile is used by some private schools, sort of maybe the top tier schools, some other schools. You can find them on the College Board website. There's a list of all the participating CSS profile schools. It's a 16-page application that asks families a lot more in-depth questions about their financial situation, their house, their business, the students, the other family members, where the FAFSA is just basically asking questions about the parents and the student.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back to the slides. So financial need is based on the cost of attendance, or as you can see in front of you, the student budget. So hypothetically, if, the Jodi Okun school costed $58,500, then with the federal methodology, there would be an equation using the parents' state they live in, the oldest parent's age, how many people are in the family, an entire equation to come up with their family contribution, or otherwise known as your EFC. So I'm sure you've heard the words EFC, your expected family contribution, and that gives you, in this brief explanation, that the parents would contribute $15,000, which means that the student needs $43,500 in order to go to that college, the Jodi Okun College at 58.5. So the eligibility for financial aid would be 43.5. Colleges would either try to meet that need by giving several different kinds of financial aid. Financial aid can be made up with work, study, grants, scholarships, and loans. And let's break down what the student budget means. So on the previous slide, when we talked about student budget, that includes tuition and fees, so how much the college costs, and then they have a fees breakdown. Sometimes tuition and fees is broke into two parts. Each semester you pay, or if the college is quarters, you would pay by quarters. Also, personal expenses are in the student budget, otherwise known as cost of attendance. Personal expenses can be either high or low. Colleges usually estimate that a student will spend about $1,000 maybe a year-ish on personal expenses. So it's how often your student goes maybe to the local grocery store or to the local CVS or drugstore to get something that they need. Room is obviously where they live, and board is considered their meals. So sometimes room can be that a student is sharing a room with 3 students or 2 students or 1 student. And when you talk about meals, or otherwise known as board, you can get 7 meals a week or 14 meals a week, or if your student wants to eat at the dining hall 21 times all the time, then you would pay more to do that. Books and supplies these days is considered in cost of attendance, and cost of attendance, books and supplies can vary. You can rent a textbook, or you can buy new textbooks, or you can share textbooks. So that cost might be variable. And transportation, if your student goes to a college across the country, then obviously your transportation bill will be higher than someone who goes to school 20 minutes away or 40 minutes away. So the cost of attendance is set by each college at the beginning of the school year, usually in July or August, and that's for the whole year. The required documents that you need to apply for need-based aid, as I said, was the FAFSA, and that's at fafsa.ed.gov. So be careful that when you're clicking on something, you click on the right URL. That is fafsa.ed.gov. And then before I was talking with you guys about College Board. So on College Board, you'll be able to find the profile online. The College Board does charge for the profile. So there's a registration fee of $9 and then $16 for every college that your student applies to on the profile. And that money goes directly to College Board. Also, you will be, during the seniors, currently, you will be using the IRS data retrieval tool, which is located on the FAFSA. So if you've filled out your FAFSA and you have completed your 2012 tax return, you'll need to go back into your FAFSA, select already completed, and use the IRS data retrieval tool to pull your tax return into the FAFSA and populate the fields so that they present the correct amounts of income that you made, adjusted gross income, and that way the colleges will be able to give you their official financial aid award letter. Also, I just stuck this on as a reminder, and I'm not sure how many people are here from California or across the nation, but each state has their own grant system, and usually the grants have deadlines. Your student has to meet the qualifications in order to get those grants, and some of them you might need to fill out an application, a GPA verification, in order to get that. Another secret, don't tell anybody, you guys, I'm going to tell you a little secret on the West Coast, it's called the WUE, WUE, Western Union Exchange. They have all of them across the nation. So sometimes if your student is applying to a college that's out of state and they meet certain criteria, they might be able to get in-state tuition. And I think, Rob, that's probably a whole nother kind of webinar that we can do. But it's a great little state grant that you can look for if you're looking for schools outside of your own state. So remember when I was talking about factors that are considered in this federal methodology formula? So it's a formula. It's actually something that we do. We can do it hand calculation, or we can do it by, our software system. But they take the income of the custodial parent and the student. They also take into consideration the assets of the custodial parent and the student. They count how many family members you have living in your household, and how many children are going to college. And they also, as I said earlier, talk about the age of the older parent. So that becomes a formula in order to find out what your expected family contribution is, or your EFC. What's not included is your home, your retirement, your business assets. Those are all protected in the federal analysis. But sometimes, like I said earlier, they are considered for the private colleges in the CSS profile. How are we doing, Rob?
Good. We got a few questions. I'll fire at you if you have a moment. Can you speak a little bit
Yeah.
more about the out-of-state grant? There's some interest in that
Yeah,
from a few people.
yeah, I kind of thought so. It's like it's a little tip. I'll actually shoot an email to Rob after this with some of the tips that I actually don't have in the slide. But the WUE, which is the Western Union Exchange, WUE, each college that might be included in your region of colleges wherever you are in the United States, you could probably look up undergraduate exchange program for the Southwest, for the East, and those colleges will have their own criteria of what you need. Some of them might be GPA oriented, some of them might be major oriented. For example, if you live in California and you apply to Colorado State, they have a WUE exchange that if you have a certain GPA and a certain SAT, then and you qualify, you might get in-state tuition even though your student lives in California. If you apply to Arizona, you have to major in mining. So that might not work out for you. So you just have to look at the colleges. There's no magic in this. It's just really kind of plowing through it on your own.
And a couple eligibility questions. If you live with a grandparent, how does that affect the scenario? If you are a student who's over the age of 18 and living alone, how does that affect the scenario? And
Okay.
then a general question about FAFSA, is that filled out every single year or just once?
I'm going to go backwards. The FAFSA is filled out every single year. So every year you go to college, you fill out the FAFSA. That's in case, something changes in your household financially. You have one on file every year. As far as if grandma and grandpa live with you. So if grandma and grandpa live in your house, then your household size increases and you're allowed to put them on the FAFSA. So if I have 4 people in my family and grandma lives with me, I have 5 in my family and 1 goes to college. If I'm 18 and I live alone, there are 13 dependency questions on the FAFSA. If you answer one of the dependency questions yes, like I live alone, you have to be able to prove that you either support yourself, you're an emancipated minor, you live in a legal guardianship, you are a ward of the court, your parents have maybe passed. So there's criteria that you might need to provide for the FAFSA or the college in order to be declared an independent. And if someone wants to ask that question to me off the webinar, we can talk about that afterwards. I know everyone has unique situations. Did I get them all?
Perfect, thank you. We got a few more, but why don't we
Okay,
let you get
let's
back
go
to the
on.
presentation? We'll take these a little bit later. And everyone keep the
Sounds good.
questions coming. We appreciate it.
Okay, so when you fill out the FAFSA, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. It's a smart form, and each question, as Rob said, we did a little seminar a couple weeks ago, line by line by line. Each question you answer has a smart element to it, so it moves you on to the next question. It's basically your name, your address, your phone number, your email, and so on and so forth. You go through the whole form, you talk about your parents, their social security numbers, what they made, and then at the end of the form, you'll need to sign the form electronically. So if you are a senior parent or a senior family right now and you haven't filled out your FAFSA, remember you need to go apply for a PIN. The student needs a PIN, and you use your social security number, birthday, address, and some other criteria in order to get a PIN. And then one of your parents needs a PIN, either mom or dad. You don't both need a PIN. So when the PIN site says PIN, your PIN, they mean student's PIN. So when it says your, always think student. When it says parent, always think parent. Okay, so sometimes parents might be helping you fill out and getting their PIN. Just kind of refer to it, your is the student. And both students need to use the PIN, and then once you have your PINs in place, you accept all the terms, you agree all to the terms, then you go ahead and submit your FAFSA. So as we talked earlier, the primary sources of financial aid are the federal government. In order to receive any loans, Pell Grant, state grant, maybe a Parent Plus loan, you have to have your FAFSA on file. It's kind of considered sort of like a application. So you need to have that on file. So if your parents are considering that maybe we might need a student loan or a Parent Plus loan to help us with a little bit of the college costs, FAFSA is your number one key. State government, we talked about that a little bit. So your state application, sometimes it's called the GPA verification. That is used in order, if you're gonna go to college in your home state, you might qualify for state money where you can have a certain GPA and a certain income level and a particular asset level, and then get some free grant money to go to the college in your state that you've applied to. Post-secondary institutions also have grants and scholarships that they offer, and you can earn those by filling out your FAFSA or your CSS profile, and also you can also earn them through maybe your admissions through merit money. And private agencies like Zinch also are great resources for you to go on their website and apply to as many scholarships as you possibly can that maybe fit your profile, and so that you're able to earn more money to help you pay for college. When you're filling out your FAFSA, it's important to carefully fill it out and make sure that it's accurate, complete information. In fact, what I love about the FAFSA right now is the fact that they have online chats. So if you're filling out your FAFSA and you have questions on line B8 that you're on and you don't know what they really are trying to say to you, you can live chat them and they'll come online and they'll help you with the question that you have, or try to clarify the question that you may have regarding the FAFSA. And also, if you're a junior parent right now, there are worksheets that you can download maybe to practice a little bit this year, kind of get an idea of, you know, how to fill it out, the questions you might have for later on. If you want to practice filling it out to make sure that you understand all the questions and then do a little research after it, I think that's a great little tip for you to take home today. And when filling out the FAFSA and you put your insertion point into each box of the FAFSA, they created these amazing help menus on the sides. So if your insertion point is in one box and you have a question about that box, you can look to the right and see all the helpful hints that they give you. Providing inaccurate information when you complete your FAFSA, what it might do is it might drive you to an unofficial award letter that might not be accurate and might not give you the correct amount of money if you need money or if you're eligible for money. So filling it out correctly, I think, is key. Making sure that you know exactly how many people are in your household and how many people are going to college. If you're under the age of 26, you get to be included in the parent's household. If your student, one of your older students, has graduated from college and already received their bachelor's, they are not included in the household in some methodologies, so you want to be careful of that. Deadlines in financial aid are key. So right now, deadlines for students for priority financial aid, most of them are coming up or flying by, or we're right on the seat of them. So if there's any way that you can get your financial aid applications in as early as possible, remembering that they're always going to go up on January 1st when you're a junior parent. If you can get it in January, then you can say, check, that's done with my list, and be really happy that you can kind of exhale a little bit on that. Another recommendation I have is checking your student center. So if you're a senior parent right now and your student has applied to colleges, they have received a login and a password. And their login and password can go onto the website of the college that they've been accepted to, will have a financial aid tab. On that financial aid tab might be a list of things that the colleges has received from you, and then maybe a list of things that the college still needs from you. Now is a good time to do that tonight, so that if you're missing documents, you can get those to the colleges quickly so that they can get you the award letter. So you don't want to be holding up the college financial aid process because they're missing documents. And pretty soon the colleges will have deadlines where if documents are not in by a certain time, then you might miss out on that award money. And also using the IRS data retrieval tool. Some colleges have put a date on it, not all have, so you might need to be checking the website to see when is that due and am I going to be able to meet that deadline. So special circumstances is a unique piece of financial aid. When filling out an application like the FAFSA, it only gives you the ability to exactly answer the questions that they give you. There's no more, no less, no blank boxes for you to add extra information. But every family is unique, and every family may have something going on that's different than the family next to them. So there's a box on the FAFSA that talks about if you have a special circumstance, like for instance, a parent has lost a job or there's income loss, or if there's some divorce or remarrying, or maybe there's been an unusual medical or dental expense in your house, or something has happened that you want the financial aid office to know. Financial aid officers are, they really do have an open door policy, and they really appreciate if you come in and let them know what's really going on in your family so that they can help. And the only way that they can help is if you either call them, write them an email, or write them a letter and say, this is what's going on in my family, and it wasn't this way 3 months ago when we filled it out. Things have changed. And with that said, I would make an appointment with a counselor to see, is there something they can do or something that needs to be done that you might not have known about when you started the process, back in January, and you don't start school until the fall. So need-based grants, we talked a little bit about it. We'll touch more about it, just because remember, financial aid is made up of loans, grants, scholarships, and work study. College grants and scholarships, they can definitely vary between colleges. So if one college gives you, one grant for $2,000, another college might not give you the same grant. So it's always nice to be able to compare award letters. So senior students, as you're getting into your colleges, your award letters are going to start rolling in March if you haven't received them already. And you're going to be able to put them side by side by side on the kitchen table and take a look at what grants or scholarships you got that were need-based from the financial aid office, or what grants or scholarships you got that were merit-based based on your grades. Now, some need-based grants can be the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant is awarded to students. You can get up to 5550. That doesn't mean you're going to get the total amount. And you have to have under estimated income. Okay, so it's definitely based on the income or the adjusted gross income that your family brings in. So your parents need to make, and you need to make under that amount. To receive a federal SEOG grant, usually that's given out by the director of the college, and you get that grant if you've already received the Pell Grant, and it's strictly director based, and they can give you up to 4,000, or they can give you as small as 200 or 300. So it's all up to the director of the financial aid office. And then we talked about need-based state grants. So I know there's many people listening, all of our listeners that come from different states. So like in California, we have some, in Illinois, you have some, in Florida, you have some. So you have some across the board. So I don't want you to focus directly on California here. So make sure that you've checked with your student's high school counselor that all the forms that needed to be sent in for that student have electronically been sent in, or if it's still paper, that they filled those out and gotten those in by the due date. So merit-based scholarships, they're kind of tricky. Some schools offer them. Some schools have scholarships for leadership or community service. And different colleges have different ways to apply. So this is where those beautiful shiny brochures come in. It's like my favorite part to see all those brochures. So that's a great activity where you can be sitting at the dining room table or the kitchen table or on the living room floor, and you can read the brochures because they're going to tell you what scholarships are available that are merit based on your grades for students, so that when they're filling out their applications in the summer of their senior year, if you're a junior parent, then you'll know if this school is a target school, and if the school is a target school or you're under applying, that maybe you'll receive some merit money, and that might be important for your family to receive that in order to afford that college. You need to make sure that you read the criteria about merit scholarships. Usually it'll say in your acceptance letter, if you're a senior student listening or a senior parent, it'll say in the letter, you've been awarded X amount of dollars for 4 years, which breaks down to this amount for every year. Congratulations. In order to keep this, you need to have a certain GPA. So they will spell it out. It'll also be in their brochure, and it'll also be on their website. And I wouldn't hesitate to call admissions or financial aid, even though we're really talking about at admissions, about the merit scholarships. And just as a side note, usually merit scholarships, in my experience, they haven't been very negotiable, so it's not something that, you if you didn't get it, you might get it later on, but there might be other kinds of scholarships that you can get later on in your college career. So outside scholarships, not only, we've talked about Zinch and how amazing they are, but there's all kinds of things that you can do in your community. There's Rotary Club, there's Coca-Cola, maybe there's National Charity League or the Women's Group, or even your church or temple might have a scholarship that you can apply to. Sometimes if the student is unique in some activity or sport or community service, you can probably pop those into an internet search engine and take a look at them. I think I had one client, it was pretty funny. She's like, Jodi, I bet you can't find, my daughter does trampoline. And so I found 6 scholarships for trampoline. So I think hunting for scholarships just in itself is fun because there's all kinds out there. There's the KFC scholarship where you need to write a new jingle for Kentucky Fried Chicken. Or there's the duct tape scholarship where if you make the most unique prom dress, is it? That you can win a scholarship. So there's all kinds of wacky but not wacky scholarships. The Coca-Cola, Gates Millennium, very serious scholarships. There's the top 10 scholarships the most prestigious. So using Zinch or using something, your Internet Explorer, you can find out exactly what requirements they have, what separate applications they have, if they need teacher recs. Some require transcripts, essays. Some even require an interview or an audition, and they can be quite competitive. So you need to make sure that you're following all the requirements. That's the key here, following all the requirements and using maybe your school resume and your leadership skills to help fill it out. And so I think scholarships is something that I have a lot of kids applying for them and wanting to know more about them. And I think it's always a mystery that we try to let students know they're out there. You just really, really need to apply. So the one just really key point, I get a lot of questions about this, so I just try to touch on it lightly, is that outside scholarships, depending on the amount of scholarships, they do they kind of come out of your financial aid. So there's a little bit of criteria in that. And I don't think for this particular webinar, we will go into a lot of criteria with that because it'll be case by case and the what if scenario. So if you do have a private scholarship and you're concerned about your financial aid, I highly recommend you talk to your financial aid office and let them have a conversation with you about it because they each will have different rules on that. My favorite topic, student employment. I love work study. I think work study is amazing. And the only way to get work study, it's a federal program, is to fill out your FAFSA. And there's actually a question about it that says, do you want, if eligible, work study? Answer it yes. No matter what, answer it yes. Don't answer I don't know. Don't answer no. Always answer it yes. And this way you might be able to get a job on campus. So you can get a job on campus by, if you're eligible for work study and they grant it for you, then you get like a special pin and you put it in and you find all the jobs available on campus. So it's a great way to be connected. You can work in admissions, you can work in financial aid, you can maybe work in the bookstore, and to have some extra money. Remember when we looked at the cost of attendance, to talk about your personal expenses, and maybe that can help you buy your books, or your some groceries or something else that's extra. And when you're thinking about work experience, when you get to be a junior or senior, I know this is hard, but in college, some of the work experience that you do in college would be great on your resume for when you graduate college, if you're working in your industry of your major. If you're sure kind of like where you're going or what you're doing, tailoring it can also bring a lot of depth to your college experience. So I sort of reminding students that summer jobs and anything that they're doing while in college can be included in your professional resume and look really good for when you're graduating college, to see the work experience that you put in during your college years. So thinking beyond is a great tip. Educational loans. In order to get student loans, you need to fill out your FAFSA. And also, if you're eligible, you will get a student loan. There's Stafford loans that are actually at 3.4% interest rate, and the PowerPoint says that subsidized loans are at 6.8% interest rate. The difference is a subsidized loan gets 3.4% interest rate and you do not need to pay it back till 6 months after you graduate. And an unsubsidized loan accrues interest while you're going to college, and you again do not need to pay it back till 6 months after you graduate. And that they usually have like what you call like a freshman package, a sophomore package, a junior package, and a senior package. So that is actually in the student's name, and you receive that if you fill out the FAFSA and you are eligible. The Perkins loan is also another loan that if you have a lower income, you will be awarded a Perkins loan. And the Parent Plus loan, if your parents need to fill the gap of how much the college costs and how much you're awarded in financial aid, sometimes colleges will fill the gap with a Parent Plus loan, which actually is at 7.8%, even though it's a 7.9% here. And in order to get the Parent Plus loan, families must have a FAFSA on file. So these loans get kind of complicated at the end of the process. So senior families, as you're moving through the process and deciding how you're going to pay for college, these are some of the options that are going to come forth to you. And what we want to take a look at is whether you really need these loans in order to finish your financial aid. I gave you an example of a award letter. This is one just from Occidental, where you can take a look at the student was awarded scholarships. They were awarded some need-based aid. They also received a California grant, and they received loan money. Some of these awards are renewable, some of them are strictly based on merit, and some of them are strictly based on what the family needed in order to meet the cost of attendance. So it's broken up into fall, spring, and the total award amount. With this, Rob, I think we can have probably a whole nother webinar. Fun things, you guys, fun things. The net price calculator is what you could be doing now. If you're a junior parent, it started in 2012, 2013, so it's going on right now. Every college is required to have the net price calculator on their website. So you can go to the college that your student wants to go to as a junior parent, and you can put in your assets, how many people are in your family, and how many, what your AGI is, and you can find out what you think or what the calculator thinks you're going to owe the college. So it's kind of a great way to find a ballpark, and I want to really underline and put in quotations, bold, 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 that it's a ballpark. So it's not exactly what you're going to have to pay, but it kind of gives you an idea during the junior year to be able to really take a look at what colleges your students applying to and what kind of the cost is going to be. And I think this is a really good tool for us to get an idea and have those financial literacy conversations. Many schools have availability in institutional funds, and some schools are not able to meet full needs. So even though you may need more money, there are some schools that do not meet full needs. So parents will need to make up the gap. And there's different kinds of ways to make up the gap. Whether you use private loans or are creative in making up the gap. I know it can be stressful because college is expensive, but not all schools meet 100% need. Every school will have an online policy, so be sure, look at the brochures, download their books, review their policies. It'll have their criteria, all their scholarships, all their need-based scholarships, all spelled out, so you won't have to worry. It'll be all right there. Refund policy, special circumstances. It really does tell you everything if you take the time to read it. So here's the last thing that you need to do. January, gather your information. FAFSA, in February, fill it out and your profile is due. In March, you may have your certain grants or scholarships that are due. In April, you'll receive your aid award. You'll submit your tax returns to the college. In May, your award letter will become official. In June, your students should fill out and complete their master promissory note and their entrance counseling. And in July, your student will receive their first bill. And in August, your first bill will be due. And so with that said, I'm sure we have just a few questions. I'm sorry I talked a lot.
No, that was great. So we do have some questions here, and folks, feel free to fire away if you have any more. We'll try and get to as many as we can in the next 10 minutes or so. So first question here, Jodi, is there any does it affect the decision at all by universities to give financial aid if you apply early or not?
Say that one more time.
If you were to apply early decision to a school, or if you're on a waiting list, does that operate independently of financial decisions, or are they connected at all?
No, no. If you apply early decision or early action, you have to have your financial aid applications filled out early. And all that means is they're going to give you your estimated unofficial award letter early. So that's it. They're just going to give you the award letter early. But if you apply to early decision to a binding college and you can't afford that or something happens, it is binding. So be really careful where you're applying to make sure that, you are going to be able to pay for that college.
Thanks. We had a counselor ask a question. They used the data retrieval tool to pull a parent's tax info for a student.
Uh-huh.
Uh, After doing that, do they also have to fill out the 2012 info, or is that not required since they've now pulled the 2012 tax return?
If they pulled the 2012 tax return and it's been verified with the tool, colleges have been told by the Department of Ed that that could be sufficient. But if a particular college wants more information, they will let you know. So the tool is supposed to be the number one, but each college on top of that gets to have their own standards.
Thanks. And the
Mhm.
CSS profile, is there a way to get a fee waiver for that?
There is a way to get a fee waiver for it, and it will pop up when you put your financials in it. And if you meet the criteria in it, then it'll automatically pop up and say you've just been awarded a fee waiver.
Great. So you get the fee waiver essentially by filling out the beginning of
When
the
you get
CSS.
when you get to the end and it says please pay, then it'll say you just were awarded a fee waiver and you don't have to pay.
Thank you. And then as far as deadlines go, for CSS deadline, FAFSA deadline, or any financial aid for your college, any senior students or parents out there, can you give them a little bit of advice around deadlines in terms of if you missed it, you should still fill it out? Does it vary for different forms?
Yeah, if you missed it, fill it out. Just fill it out. Just go do it right now. Go fill out the profile. Go fill out the FAFSA. The deadlines that they're giving you are priority deadlines, so hoping, you get it in before that date. Some colleges will, say that's the last date and we won't accept any after that. But I would just go fill it out. I mean, it's March. What day is it? It's the 25th. Do it. Go for it.
All right. In terms of a student seeing parents' financial information, how does that work on the FAFSA? Or what do you say to parents that want to keep that information private?
Well, the FAFSA technically is a student form. So it's a student filling out the FAFSA asking for financial aid for themselves. So if the parent doesn't want the student to see it, it does ask for all the criteria about the student. So at this point, it might be, important to have those financial literacy conversations. I know they're tough, but it's time. So it's the student's FAFSA.
Thank you. In terms of
Mhm.
the financial analysis on the FAFSA or other forms, is a dependent special needs child at home or a sibling who's in a private school, are either of those factored into the analysis?
They're not factored. I mean, they are considered part of the household. So if they have special needs and you have high medical expenses and your student is applying on the CSS profile, you can write, there's a question in there that says, what are your medical expenses? So if you have very high medical expenses, there's a blank for that. Also, you can write, if your student is not applying to a CSS profile and they're just applying to a FAFSA school, you can write the college a letter, the financial aid, and say, we have a special needs student and we have X amount of dollars in medical expenses and see if they'll give you a special circumstance regarding that.
Great. For parents and students that want to get a jump start on the FAFSA, I know it's the next year's won't be out until January, but are there some worksheets? Are there some different things that they can do to prepare for that?
Yeah, definitely go to fasfa.ed.gov and you can download this year's worksheet. Each year the FAFSA changes a little teeny bit, but you can get like a really good gauge on the questions they're going to be asking you. So download the worksheet or pop it up on your computer and fill in the PDF and practice, 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 practice.
All right. In terms of applying for financial aid and looking at scholarships in general, with a mind towards sophomores and juniors that might want to get a head start, what are some early things that you recommend they can do?
Um, I I think looking for scholarships all 4 years is very key. So I would start a folder or a binder or a place in your house where your student is making a list of all the scholarships that they want to apply to. So filling out your profile 100% on your scholarship search engines or looking in the community newspaper or looking in the newspaper to see what scholarships are available and when their deadlines are so that you have a tracking device so that you meet all the deadlines and the criteria in time. And some of them will be 9th through 12th grade. And if you send it in, then you might be awarded that during your college years.
Thanks. What about we have someone here with a student who is attending school in a different state? So, in terms of in state or out of state considerations, is it where they live, where they attend high school, or are both going to be factors?
Where they attend high school and where they live. Both are factors.
Okay. In terms of CSS profile, is there an easy resource to find which schools require it and which don't?
Yeah, it's located on the College Board website, and there's a little link on the bottom that says the schools that require the CSS profile.
Any recommendations for people outside California that want to look into WUI like programs?
Yeah, again, that is another link that Rob, I can probably send you all the, undergraduate exchange by region, and you guys should definitely research them and see what the criteria is. Again, it's kind of opening a can of worms here, but the college gets to form their own criteria. So you'll have to, set aside some time to look at each college and see what the criteria is. But I'll definitely send you a link and you can spread it out to everyone. Okay.
Thank you. We have one more question here, and then we'll have a couple minutes, everyone. So if you do have another question or two, please feel free to fire away. This question kind of relates back to what you mentioned earlier about students that are not citizens not being eligible for the FAFSA. Can you speak about what sort of aid they could potentially be eligible for?
So if a student is not a US citizen and they went to a high school in the United States and they have a really high GPA and they filled out an admissions application to go to a particular college, maybe they're awarded a merit scholarship based on their grades or a leadership scholarship based on their grades. They just can't get federal funding.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then we have a question here. Sorry, just reading through these real quick. So, how do students typically get, or how can students get in-state tuition if they're attending an out-of-state university?
Um, I don't think there's a way unless they moved there. And if, again, like I said earlier, I can give Rob the link to some of the undergraduate exchange programs and see if those apply. But if you're living in Arizona and you want to go to school in Iowa, you have to pay out of state tuition unless you move there.
Or is there something as perhaps there's merit-based? Are there ever merit-based scholarships where as part of it you
Yeah.
get to pay in-state tuition? Is that maybe that's the
Yeah, yeah. If that's yeah, that might be the way they're phrasing it. Yeah, there are those. So you would have to check college by college, depending on your list to see if maybe there's a tuition matching program or an employer matching program that might offer that kind of aid.
excellent? Well, I think we're a few minutes over, so I think we're going to let everyone go. Really appreciate all your questions. We will be emailing out the link to this video. For those who want the slides, you can just reply to my email and I will send you this presentation. We'll send some information that we promised you this evening. And if there's any other info you want, we'll give some good follow-up areas where you can get back in touch with either me or Jodi, and we will answer all your questions. Jodi, thanks so much.
Thank you. You
And
guys
everyone
have
have
a
a great
great day or a great night. Take care.
good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.